Hey and howdy everyone, it's Jeannie with Paper Pixie Ink. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to start the tutorial for the Alice's Tea Party album that I made that was based off of this Let It Snow album that I had shared earlier. I had a lot of people comment and send DMs and whatnot asking if there was going to be a tutorial. So I decided to remake it fairly quickly using the Alice's Tea Party collection, also from Graphic 45. So it will be a little different than this Let It Snow album, in that when I made this Let It Snow album, I used an 8x8 paper pad, a few sheets from another, and then some of the patterns and solids, the 12x12 patterns and solids. I also used some of the chipboard pieces because I had that as part of the Let It Snow collection. Unfortunately, I didn't have it for the Alice's Tea Party collection. So it is almost essentially the same, but there are a couple of differences. I also used a different die for the decorative edges that I did on some of it, because I wanted to use something that I think more people have and is still available in some places. So I used one of the Spellbinder's border dies. So this was the Let It Snow album and is what we're going to start remaking today. So today we're going to start by creating the cover and the very base of all 6 of the pages. So I'm going to use 2 of the 8x8 paper pads for the Alice's Tea Party. Like I said, I didn't have the patterns and solids, but this is a really pretty collection. It's kind of soft, but not too soft. And the colors are great, and there are some really great designs in this collection. Some of the patterns are really cute, and the pattern paper is quite nice. So to go along with 2 8x8 paper pads, I'm also going to use some of the ephemera pieces from the collection, as well as the journaling and ephemera cards. For this album, I decided to use black because I wanted the nice stark contrast to the pretty pastels in the collection. And then this is the die that I'm going to use from Spellbinders. So it's the bracket border 1 die, and then 2 pieces of chipboard that are cut to 8.5 by 8.5, and this is medium weight chipboard, and then 1 piece that is cut to 8.5 by 3.5, which will be our spine. So to get started, I'm going to grab some of my black cardstock, and I am just going to attach 3 pieces together so that I have enough to cover my chipboard to create my cover. To attach my cardstock together, I'm just going to use some 3/4 inch double-sided adhesive from Scrapbook.com. So I'm going to put just 1 strip as close to the edge as I can along the long edge of one of my black pieces of cardstock. And then I'm going to do the same thing on a second piece of cardstock. And then I'm going to use some liquid adhesive on them as well and attach them all together. Alright, so now that we have the 3 pieces of cardstock connected together, I am going to apply my chipboard to this. And I'm going to start with my spine piece, So I'm going to apply some liquid adhesive to it, and then I am going to use a ruler to try and keep things relatively straight. If it makes you feel better, you can always just measure approximately 1 to 1.25 inches up so that you know that it's roughly aligned. I just like to make sure that the pieces of chipboard for my cover are fairly even with each other, so that when I'm wrapping the cover, it looks a lot cleaner and is easier to do. And then I'm going to use 2 pieces of chipboard that are glued together. I use it as a spacer so that I know how much space to leave between my spine piece and my front and back covers. So I'm just going to apply some liquid adhesive to one of my 8x8 pieces. I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to grab my spacer, use it to make sure that I have the right amount of space, and then push down my chipboard. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the left side as well. So as you can see, I didn't get it very straight, but that's okay. You're going to use the excess to wrap your book anyway, so nobody's going to see that. I'm just going to cut off a little bit of any excess cardstock that I have. You don't really need that much to wrap with. I would rather have more than not enough, but I always try and cut off anything that is too excessive. And then I'm going to grab a tool that I bought off of Amazon. I don't know if the seller has them anymore, but you can get these from Etsy sellers and whatnot as well. And it's just a little tool that you can lay on the corner of your chipboard, and it will show you exactly how much to cut off. You can just cut right off the edge. And I'm going to do this for all 4 corners. Once I've done all 4 of my corners, I am going to grab my 3/4 inch double-sided adhesive, and I am just going to put tape all around the outer edges of my cardstock. Okay, so now it's time to wrap. I'm going to burnish down all of the tape just to make sure that it's really well stuck. And then I am going to just fold along the edges of the chipboard with the cardstock so that I have a bit of a fold going before I go to glue it down. And then I'm going to remove one of the strips of backing paper from the double-sided adhesive, and I'm going to apply liquid glue right along the edge of the chipboard on the cardstock and along that whole piece of cardstock. And then I'm going to press it up onto the cardstock and burnish it down. And again, you want to make sure this lays really flat and is very, very, very well adhered, because this is your cover. You don't want this coming off. Then we're going to repeat that on the opposite side. Okay, once we have the long sides done, we have to do the short sides. Before you can glue these down, I recommend just using a bone folder or tool, or anything that has kind of a flat edge, to just lightly push in the corners of the cardstock so that when you fold that over, it will lie nice and flat. And then when you put your cardstock over top of your inside covers, you're not going to see, the fold. It's going to look nice and clean and flat, just like a book. And then we're going to do the exact same thing on both of the short sides that we did on the long sides. moving on to creating the binding for our album, we're going to grab a piece of black cardstock and we're going to cut it down to 8 inches by 11 inches. And then we are going to score it at the 1.25 inch mark every 1/2 inch 18 times. Next, we're going to grab some double-sided adhesive. I'm using 1/4 inch here, and I'm going to place a strip of this between the first and second score lines. Then I'm going to skip a section and then place another strip of the double-sided adhesive. I'm going to put one directly under that one, and then I am going to skip the next section and then do 2, skip, 2, skip, 2, skip until I have finished off that pattern between all of the score lines. And then when I've completed that, I'm going to go ahead and fold all of my score lines. One other thing that I will also do is I will apply double-sided adhesive using the 1/4 inch and the 3/4 inch on either end in the large 1.25 inch sections. Okay, so once you have all of your folds done, we are going to flip it back over so that you are looking at the side with the double-sided adhesive. And then we are going to go ahead and pull off that first strip of double-sided adhesive that was within the first and second score lines. We're going to add a bit of glue because I like using both the double-sided adhesive and the liquid adhesive. And then we're going to skip the next one and then do the one after that, add some glue. So you're going to skip every one because you are going to be attaching the one that you are removing to the one that does not have double-sided adhesive on it. And then once you've done all 6 of those, you are going to take your scissors and just trim a tiny little bit off of the corners of each of your little tabs that you create by doing this process. So let's grab our cover. We're going to mark the placement of this so that we know when we go to glue this down roughly where it's going to go. And then we are going to remove all of the backing and apply glue, liquid glue, to the back of your binding. Again, I like to add liquid adhesive because I like to make sure that I have, all my bases covered and that this is going to stay. This is especially important on your binding because this is the part of your album that is going to be used the most. It will be pulled and you want to make sure that this stays really, really, really well. So I use the double-sided adhesive and I use liquid glue, and then I make sure that I have it pushed down really, really, really well. So I use a bone folder, and then when I'm done pushing it down, I just use my bone folder to fold in the creases of where my album folds at the spine. To finish off our album cover, we are going to grab another 2 pieces of our black cardstock, and we are going to cut them down to 8 1/4 by 8 1/4, and this will cover the inside, front, and back covers. And I just use liquid adhesive to glue these down along with my bone folder to make sure that I get it nice and flat and I don't get air bubbles or glue bubbles or anything like that. So the last part of this tutorial is going to be creating our base pages for our album. So to do this, I am going to cut 6 pieces. I'm going to cut 3 at a time. I'm going to cut 6 pieces in total to 9 1/4 by 8 1/2. And then I'm going to cut an additional 6 pieces, 3 at a time, to 8 1/4 by 8 1/4. I'm going to take the cardstock that I cut to 9 1/4 by 8 1/2, and I am going to score those 6 pieces along the short side. On each side, I'm going to score at the 1/2 inch mark. So I'm going to lay it down so that the 9 1/4 inch is across the top of my scoreboard, and I'm going to score it at a 1/2 inch and 8 3/4 inches, and then I'm going to turn it around and score along the long edge on one side at a 1/4 inch. So once I have everything scored, I am going to grab my scissors and I am going to snip off the corners where the 2 score lines meet on all 6 of these pages, and then I'm going to fold and burnish all of my score lines. And our last step is going to be gluing our 8 1/4 by 8 1/4 sheets to our scored and folded other sheets. So we are just going to apply liquid glue to one of our 1/2 inch tabs and our 1/4 inch tab. And then the other side is going to be the side that we use to attach our pages to our album. So we're going to leave that alone for now. So we're going to do that for all 6 of our pages, and that will be the end of our tutorial for today. Alright, so that's the end of our tutorial for today. Thank you to everybody who watched. Please remember, if you're interested in seeing more, don't forget to click on that subscribe button so you can be notified when I have new videos posted. Thanks, everyone!